So, hi everyone. My name is Annika Lee, and I have the honor of being part of the SUPERCLUSTER team as the Membership and Communications Coordinator. And I'd like to welcome you all to our monthly Associate Onboarding webinar today. As a reminder, this call will be recorded, and we ask all participants to keep their lines muted during the presentation to avoid any feedback. We will also be distributing both this recording as well as the slide deck following the session for you to share with your teams. As the majority of the SUPERCLUSTER team is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering virtually on the traditional lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Before handing things over to Bill Tam, our co-founder and Chief Operating Officer, our goal is to have this be an engaging and informative session. If at any point you have a question during the call, we ask that you please type into the chat box and we will answer them in queue. In addition, we will be pausing periodically throughout the presentation to have anyone on the line who would like to introduce themselves. You can send a quick note into the chat and we'll ask you to unmute your line and share a bit more about yourself and your organization and why you joined the SUPERCLUSTER. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Bill.
Thanks very much, Annika, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm really excited to be here with you. We've been doing these associate onboarding sessions now for every month for probably the last 6 months, and you are all our latest additions to this, so welcome to the fold. We find that these are really good sessions for people to get to know one another, for us to talk a little bit about what goes on in the SUPERCLUSTER, and just to answer general questions that you might have about what it's all about. So we have a presentation I'd like to go through, and we can share that with you. But I will also say off the top that we've been amazed at how receptive people have been to joining the SUPERCLUSTER. We've more than doubled the number of organizations that are part of the SUPERCLUSTER in the last, probably the last 8 months. We now have over 700, probably 750 organizations that are part of it, and we're really hopeful that you guys are all going to find engaging opportunities to work with and to work on, and that you're going to find lots of partners in forums like this and others that share in your interest. So I'll go through this a few portions of this deck, and then what I'll do is I'll pause, and if there's some folks that would like to introduce themselves, as Annika said, just raise your hand by putting your name in the chat and say that you'd like to introduce yourself, and we'll kind of open it up so that you get to know one another as well as part of this. So why don't we move to the next slide? Maybe that's just by way of background. We started the SUPERCLUSTER journey a few years ago, and one of the motivations for setting up SUPERCLUSTERs, I think from the Government of Canada, was that we have an awful lot of great startups and innovation companies in the country. But what we were lacking was the access to markets and the connectivity between the innovations and kind of the customers and the industries in Canada that would be best suited to taking advantage of these things. So if you take a look at some of the rankings, you know, Canada wasn't doing particularly well in terms of our innovation scorecard. We have a lot of smaller tech companies, and as with all sort of smaller companies and especially startups, not all of them succeed in the longer term. And on average, what we're really trying to do is find a scaling mechanism to help businesses to grow. And as they grow, they become more productive, they contribute more significantly to the economy, and all the benefits about having more people involved in it just accrues from there. So that's really the basis for all SUPERCLUSTERs, and we're no exception. Next slide, please. Our thesis, though, was really premised on the rise of data. And a lot of you who have joined recently are probably working at the crosshairs of the new innovations that are redefining how society and our economy is operating. So new technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, robotics, many of these technologies will redefine how businesses and industries compete, win, and how they're structured in the long term. Next slide, please. So what we're finding is that with the context of the rise of data and the continuing growing volumes of information that's upon us. Just waiting for the slide to change. There is really a global data opportunity. There's been more data that's been created in the last few years than in the history of mankind. The volume of internet traffic has really outpaced everything else that we've seen. And now that there's more and more smart devices and devices that have Internet of Things capabilities, there's more data being collected and a much greater opportunity to analyze and make use of that information. Next slide, please. So, overall, the market opportunity for us in Canada and the companies that are part of the supercluster is to really take advantage of what will be a $2 trillion market opportunity in digital transformation. Next slide, please. So maybe just some context as to how we got started on the supercluster. Sorry, Annika, it's just taking a little while for the slides to flip. So if you can anticipate that, I'm going to go to the next slide. Maybe you can flip a little faster. There are 5 superclusters. As you well know, ours is headquartered in Vancouver, but I'm really pleased to say that we're joined today with members and associates that have joined from across the country, a lot from the Eastern time zone, and I'm hoping that some of you will take the opportunity to introduce yourself in this call. We also have complementary superclusters in the Western provinces and the prairies that is focused on agriculture and protein technologies. There's a supercluster based headquartered out of Ontario on advanced manufacturing. Of course, in Montreal, there's a supercluster focused on supply chain AI. And then the Ocean Supercluster is headquartered in Atlantic Canada and looking at ocean technology. This is probably a good segue into allowing people to introduce themselves. So, Annika, why don't you help steer there?
Sure, and sorry about the lag in the presentation slides. Let's see who we've got. Jeff Fox from Flashana, would you like to unmute your line and do an introduction?
Sure, Anika. My name is Jeff Fox. I'm CEO of Flashana Technologies. We are a 3-month-old startup based in Vancouver. Flashana delivers predictive analytics solutions for retail enterprises who need to understand the demand chain of their customers. So as many of us know, the supply chains around the world have been disrupted due to the pandemic. We are solving the problem of providing real-time reporting to the small and medium industries that have moved to other omni-channel platforms and need to predict their demand for their supply for their products. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Sue from Genesk Technology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xue Wu. I'm the CEO of Genesk Technology, Inc. So our company, we do genetic testing for cancer patients. So we are kind of in the precision medicine field. And we are founded in Toronto since 2012. And right now we have our largest headquarters in China with over 900 employees. So we are very interested in expanding our market in North America, as well as offer genetic testing service in Canada. So we noticed this platform because there's a program launched by Connexia Health with the digital technology supercluster on liquid biopsy project to improve the target cancer treatment. That's why we want to learn more about this platform and whether or not we can have some collaborators through this platform. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. It's so nice to have you part of the Supercluster community. Bob from Acreon Inc.
I think you're on mute, Bob.
That's better, isn't it? So Bob Daigle, I'm the regional sales VP for Acreon, and I've got Mark Hatfield, my colleague, on the line as well. So we're a digital health consultancy based out of Boston, but most of our employees are in Canada and the East Coast. So Mark is Toronto-based, and I am actually Halifax-based. You know, we've developed platforms and have people that help organizations essentially lever our technologies to integrate better into the existing ecosystems within healthcare. We've got a lot of experience doing that, so we're excited to be here.
Great, thank you for the introductions, and glad to see some East Coast organizations joining us. Kim Cooper from Youth Culture Inc., if you want to unmute your line.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Kim. I'm currently the Vice President of Partnerships at First Robotics Canada, but I'm starting my own company in September, Youth Culture Inc. And it really started after COVID, when I saw the disconnect between youth and industry, and particularly within the superclusters. So I've been talking to the advanced manufacturing supercluster to figure out how we can involve more youth and underrepresented youth, like in Black communities and Indigenous communities, how to get them involved, or at least aware of the amazing innovation that's happening within the superclusters. So I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having the onboarding session.
Thank you for joining us, Kim. Excited to see what Youth Culture gets up to. Andrea Wong from NextJ Health.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you virtually. So NextJ Health is a technology company based in Toronto. We do virtual care for chronic disease prevention and management. And over the past 9 years, we've done 25 trials, and we've published 16 peer-reviewed publications. And we're really looking to scale these projects that we've already proven out. So we're really looking forward to connecting with others for potential partnerships and scaling our projects.
Thanks, Andrea. We can do one more introduction maybe from James Brett of Apex Technologies.
Thank you very much, James Brett. It's actually Apex Technologies, but we get Apex all the time. As I wrote in my little bio there, we've invented new technology using Bluetooth-like frequencies to be able to communicate with people's smartphones in Apex-enabled venues, particularly useful during emergency situations, but also useful for events like this, where you want to use a smartphone as a second screen experience, and that traditional networks such as cellular or Wi-Fi networks may be congested, say in a sports arena or a large festival site. So we can send out things like Amber Alerts or weather alerts, very similar to those kinds of things. We call them area public safety alerts, as well as anything else that you can possibly think of to people's smartphones without making any connection and without taking any user data or using any user data, as well as doing that privately. There's no actual connection made with the phone. So we, for all intents and purposes, take your phone and turn it into a smart TV. But we're excited to be a part of the digital supercluster, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Thank you so much, James. Love the professional background behind you. Bill, why don't we continue on with the presentation, and then we'll do some more introductions afterwards.
That's great. Thanks very much, Annika. And thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. It's great to have you guys on board, and it's just a flavor for the diversity that we have in the supercluster. And I'll talk a little bit about resources a bit later on in the presentation. So as we get back onto your viewing screen, okay. I think I mentioned at the outset that one of the key things we were trying to do was to unlock the innovations in Canada. And I just want to build on that statement, because I think every organization is doing its own innovations really well in their own right. But we are here to really look at how we can combine expertise across different organizations to do things that a single organization couldn't have done on its own. And that, I think, is really the essence of this Team Canada concept to accelerate these new and bolder solutions. Next slide, please. I can see that Annika has way too many applications running on her computer, which is what's causing the delay. So one of the things that you all signed up for when you joined the SuperCluster was our Charter of Values, and we hold this dear because this is really the baseline and foundation by which the members of this SuperCluster have defined our purpose and how we interact with one another. So there are core values that we embrace, and I think Kim touched on this, about diversity and making sure that we have a pathway to ensure that we have expertise, diversity across lots of dimensions, expertise, geography, gender, ethnic backgrounds, age demographics. All of that stuff is core to what we're trying to do here. Transparency of purpose, collaboration, really understanding the results that we're trying to gear towards, this concept of greater good, and then again, having bold solutions that can be undertaken by a combination of players, and ultimately a level of respect for one another and the expertise that we each bring into these engagements. Next slide, please. I think what I'll do, Annika, is I will present the slide and you press next slide before I even finish. So our goals ultimately, there's four I just want to go through. It's really to, we are investing in R&D. So R&D is about building globally competitive products and platforms. And ultimately, this might result in spin-offs or growth in companies. It's about building powerful partnerships and alliances. A lot of it is about how we expand the talent base, both the breadth and diversity of that digital talent, and scaling up in particular smaller organizations and enhancing the ecosystem that we have here in Canada. There are 5 program areas of focus. We started off the SuperCluster with really 3 technology areas, and then a 4th one on what we call capacity building. And capacity building is really about investments in the ecosystem, in talent development, in diversity and inclusion. And so a lot of that is focusing on how we build the intersection between private sector players, not-for-profit, and organizations designed to help to build out capabilities in those areas. But in the technology areas, there were really 3 principal themes that we started with. Data commons, which is cuts across all the industries that we work with. That is looking at all the data repositories and information bases that are there, looking at technologies that can interconnect those, provide analytics and capabilities that leverage the data, and that really is what's going to drive an awful lot of improvements in some of our core industries. Digital Twins is a program that really looks at our strengths as a nation in the areas of augmented and mixed reality. It's using information sets where we can create real-world simulations of real-world environments, whether those are factories or mines or forests or hospitals. That's about building a digital twin of an actual operation. Precision health is one of the key areas for us in terms of looking at how we can use digital and data assets to really drive health innovations, to drive more precise therapies and care outcomes for individuals, whether that's in diagnosis, in how we provide healthcare, and also personalized treatment. Now, many of you are probably with us because you participated in our COVID-19 program, which we started in March in direct response to the pandemic. And we've been really pleased to see how many organizations have stepped up to really helping in that regard. We had more than 600 sort of ideas come through, and we allocated $60 million towards the COVID-19 program. And it encapsulated what we needed in terms of virtual care, mental health support, reinforcing the supply chains, especially around food security, and helping with advanced analytics on emergency response. So in all those areas, I think we saw lots and lots of good projects. It's okay. You were exactly on time there, Annika.
Sorry about that, Phil.
No problem. So I'll just present this slide, and then let's go back to some introductions from folks on the call. Really, the way that we operate is about an R&D investment thesis. So we're looking at R&D projects through a competitive lens, and we evaluate projects on the merits of, you'll see on our resource portal and our program information on our website that there's co-investment guides to talk to how we select projects and what we're looking for. But we're really looking for really strong teams with a clear set of outcomes that they're trying to achieve from an R&D standpoint, clarity on what the market opportunity is, and the kinds of things that you would expect if you are making an R&D investment in anything. We are looking at industry-led digital innovation, so this is really about having the right construction of where the adoption is going to be on the innovation that's going to be undertaken. We are looking very closely at the nature of the collaboration and the consortium. We invest alongside the consortium, so it's a co-investment formula. And we are doing commitments that range from, in the COVID era, anything from like 6 to 9 months, all the way to projects that extend 3 or 4 years. So this is one of those where we have an appetite for different types of projects with different time horizons and different scale. Next slide, please. Actually, why don't we do a pause there, Annika? Let's go to introductions and see if some folks would like to introduce themselves to the rest of the group.
Sure, sounds good. We have Sylvie and Justine from MedTech, if you'd like to do a quick introduction.
Yes, hi. So MedTech, we're based in Montreal. We're a not-for-profit also. We're a consortium of industry. And our mandate is actually quite similar on some points with the one from the digital SUPERCLUSTER. We're here to accelerate innovations in the medical and health technology area. So we're here really to explore and better understand how you guys work and you know, how we can help each other build even better projects.
Great, thank you so much for joining today, Sylvie. If anyone else does want to do a quick introduction, feel free to put your name into the chat. Otherwise, we'll just continue on with the rest of the presentation, or if anyone has some questions as well.
Why don't we move back to the presentation, and I'm sure the questions will come along on the side there.
Oh, sorry, we just have one more introduction from Morgan at Springboard Atlantic.
Hi everyone, my name is Morgan. I'm with Springboard Atlantic. From the name you can tell we're based in Atlantic Canada. We're an organization made up of 19 post-secondary institutions in Atlantic Canada. And what we do is we connect industry with academic researchers to do commercially driven R&D projects. So we have access to more than 10,000 researchers in Atlantic Canada, so we're hoping to make some industry relationships through the Digital Technology Supercluster. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Morgan. It's great to see some academic and research institution representation here today. So now I'll just flip back to the presentation and we'll finish off with that.
Great, thanks very much, Annika. And Morgan, I know how late it is. It must be after 5:30 your time, so we appreciate you participating in this. You know, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we've seen some tremendous growth in our community over the last 8 months. There are 2 levels of membership. So all of the folks on this call have joined as associates. As you know, it's an open model, so we are welcoming all organizations to come and be part of the community. What it allows people to do then is to participate in all of our events and activities, to look at project ideas and participate in them. And at the point in time where you are part of a project that has been successfully selected by us for investment, that's when we will invite you to become a full member of the SuperCluster. And so members are organizations that are making an explicit commitment to co-invest in projects. As you saw on the previous slide, we are co-investing in projects. So by virtue of members saying, hey, I'm going to put some money into this, or whether that's in kind or people, into the outcomes of that project, that's where we promote the idea that they're moving from an associate to a full member. There are some fees associated with becoming members, and all of our governance, our board, our committees, the strategic direction of the supercluster is really driven by members. And so that is sort of a natural evolution of your participation with us, is as you move from looking at projects, proposing projects, and then ultimately having successful projects. We look forward to having you as full members. Next slide, please. So at the moment, we've got the numbers can be updated on our next version, but we now have more than 700 organizations across the country, and there is a tremendous amount of diversity. So we do have universities, research institutions from across the country that are part of the supercluster. We have startups, large companies, SMEs. We also have research institutions, not-for-profits, and increasingly government agencies who are seeing value in participating in this, not only to provide advice, but also to see how they can transform how they deliver government services. Next slide, please. So the distribution on the map is across the country, and it's great to see that we've got representation pretty much from across the mix here on this call. Next slide, please. So in terms of engaging with us, this is just the beginning of what we hope will be a very long and fruitful relationship that we're going to build together. But we host events, obviously in the current regime, more virtual than physical, but we have many, many sort of events like this. It's opportunities to do networking. We have ideation workshops and forums. We have member forums. In fact, we'll be having something towards the end of September, where we'll bring together members and associates and share information about projects. We also have in your welcome package access to a resource portal. I'd invite you to extend that invitation to anyone on your teams. They can essentially get access to the information about the supercluster, create an account, and then they can see all of the other members of the supercluster and interact with them. There's ideation capabilities in it. So there's an ideation hub where you can explore and submit ideas. You also get access to all of our guides and how things work, and notification of all of our events and gatherings as we go through. So our idea here is to actually build a deeper connection through the member directory, but also a chance for people to work on meaningful projects together. So that's really the engagement we're looking for. All of this is going to lead, hopefully, to successful collaborations and projects that you're going to put together. Next slide, please. So we have this concept of a model consortium, and we hope this is a bit of a guide for how you might go about constructing your ideas or your project concepts. Unlike many other programs which the Government of Canada has put forth, which is really about funding for an individual organization, our approach is really to fund R&D projects. An R&D project for which a collaboration of multiple organizations is what drives the opportunity. So at the end point is an industry partner or a customer. It's essentially an organization that's willing to invest in the R&D outcomes because they're ultimately going to be the benefactors as the customer of the outcomes. Typically, there's one or more technology lead partners. They're building the core of the product or platform. It's enhanced by co-development partners, oftentimes startups that have expertise in particular areas like blockchain or cybersecurity or AI or machine learning or augmented reality. There's many different types of startups that participate in these sorts of things. We have technical service providers that provide the solutioning necessary to take that outcome and make it work in the industry partners environment. And so they're really the glue that essentially makes that all operational. We have post-secondary research partners, and the intention here is to pull through some of the research that's been done in laboratories such that that can be successfully commercialized in the context of these consortiums. And how the supercluster plays a role is that of a co-investor. We facilitate the collaborations, we also co-invest alongside, and the idea here is through the many players that are part of a project, essentially there's a shared risk model, there's a way to kind of buy down some of the risk through our investments and to accelerate the outcomes of the R&D project. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, we're here for a few reasons. I think it's to solve big challenges, to build those strategic relationships, to mobilize investments. And I'll talk through the last point maybe as you flip to the next slide, Annika. But part of this exercise in collaboration is actually to teach people the art of innovation at scale. And so this is really an opportunity to kind of develop teams and kind of build your own capacity and talent base. There's lots of information about our existing projects. It's on our website. If there's projects that you're interested in finding more about, you can certainly email us, and we'd be happy to help you connect to the right teams. Also, on the member directory, you'll see contact information for every member. And if you see a lead organization that you're interested in getting in touch with them, you should be able to get the access to their email or their information right on the resource portal. So I'd encourage you to take a look at the projects. We now have over 60 projects that we have announced and committed to funding. They all have great consortiums and great ideas that they're trying to undertake. And from that, you'll get a real good sense of the kinds of things that are starting to take shape. And this coming fall, we expect we'll be doing another call for projects. And so we're hoping that this session will help you to kind of get a better understanding of how we operate and begin to assemble your ideas and the team that you might operate with in order to be successful in the next call for projects. I think that's it. Let's go to the next slide. If there is a final slide, Annika, maybe we can turn our attention to any questions that people have on the chat.
For sure. Yeah, it was just the contact us page. So we have one question from James asking when the next call for projects might be, which I guess you just answered, Bill, but if you wanted to provide a bit more detail.
Yeah, we're still working on the final, the dates for it, but it'll be sometime this fall.
Thanks, Bill. As a follow-up question, James is wondering what projects, what type of projects, sorry.
So when we do call for projects, it's in the program themes that I outlined a little earlier. So this next one will be across probably the three main streams. We have a call for projects open right now for capacity building. So for those of you who are interested in diversity and inclusion or skills development, you can go to our website, you can find all the information about our current open call for capacity building projects. But the next call will be around the three technology areas of precision health, data commons, and digital twins. And you could see from our program guide and our strategy documents on our website what kind of outcomes, what kind of projects we're looking for there.
Thanks, Bill. We have a question from Mark who's wondering, what are some suggestions for new members to get started?
Hopefully I covered some of that in the context of the engagement model, but we have many, many events and lots of networking things. We're experimenting with new things in terms of the virtual experience. We had a workshop just a couple of weeks ago. For those of you that were interested in health, we had a very interactive sort of ideation workshop with the Ministry of Health of BC. We'll be doing more of that this coming fall. And so that's probably the way to get started, is just get involved in a lot of those things. I think the other aspect I'd encourage you to do is just to take a look at some of the projects that we already have committed to, and you'll get a sense of the themes and the other members who have been part of that. take a look at the members who have been successful in that. They've already gone through the learning curve of how to work inside the supercluster. They're really good to connect with if you have other ideas on how you might augment existing projects or spin up new projects. It's always helpful to have the sponsorship or a partnership with someone who's kind of been through the journey, because they can help to mentor your engagement with us. We as a small team do everything we can to help you guys get connected, including best practice workshops and wherever we can, we'll try to bring groups together on ideation sessions. But certainly your best bet is to start to explore as deeply as you can our resource portal.
Great, thanks, Bill.
All right, we have a question from Jeff asking if shared funding is shared funding contribution based or equity based?
So all of our project funding is about investing in R&D. So we don't invest in companies. So it's not about equity or debt. It's really about project funding. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks.
From Sylvie, we have a question on co-funding. Can it be directed toward the company or the research center, and to associates or the members? And what is the typical size of the projects in terms of duration and budget?
Yeah. So thanks for that. Lots of good questions there. I'll start at the end. So we've seen project sizes that could be as small as $500,000 all the way up to projects that are up to about $9 or $10 million in total size. Our investment into these projects tends to be about 43% of the overall project cost. So that's the co-investment, is that industry is putting up 57% of it, we're putting up 43%. That's generally been our formula. We had a slightly different mix for those of you who are involved in our COVID projects, where we had a bit more flexibility in that. But the general rule of thumb is it's roughly about a 60-40 split between industry and supercluster investments. When we look at how the funding actually flows, it's important. This is why we invite associates to become members. We can only flow investments towards members. And so our reimbursement piece, our co-investment, goes to full members. If associates are participating in it and they haven't upgraded to full members, then they're going to be reliant on one of the members to apportion dollars to them in some other way. In terms of how it's directed, we look at the use of funds based on a matching principle, and it will tie to different organizations. So when we look at reimbursement of claims, it will actually pertain to particular individual organizations. So from that standpoint, when you put in your proposal, there'll be a budget template that you submit that will say, here's the expenditure for this line item, that line item, this line item, and those are being contributed or expended by XYZ company. And so we'll already know up front which company is expending what and how the dollars are going to flow afterwards. Hopefully that answers all your questions, Sylvia.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Do we
Any
have
other questions,
final
Annika?
questions? Not in the chat right now. If anyone does have any final questions, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can always email us at info@digitalsupercluster.ca.
So maybe at this time, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time this afternoon to be part of this. And apologies again for sort of the delays in the presentation, but hopefully you got the essence of what we're about and how to get involved with us. We're really excited to have you, and we're hoping that you can start to work on some successful projects as we get into the next chapter. Annika, anything else?
No, I think you covered everything. Again, so sorry for the delay and the technical difficulties. I'll be sending out this recording as well as the presentation following this. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.